Okay, now that we've got the whole coaching hiring thing done, well, for now, there's going to be other things that take place today, of course. But let's get to some playoff previews. And today I've got the New York Islanders and Pittsburgh Penguins to start things up. Now, I know. See, people at this point now are going to be like, okay, so now we know whatever jersey he's wearing at the start of the video is the team that he says is going to win the series. Right. It's not a decision that I make, and I'm happy about it when it comes to Pittsburgh. But Pittsburgh has got this aura about them that you get by winning 3 Stanley Cups over a decade, by winning 2 Stanley Cups in the last 3 years, as a team that is really difficult out in the first round. And the New York Islanders, they've had an amazing run to get here. They're 48, 27, and 7, whereas Pittsburgh 44, 26, and 12. And Pittsburgh's numbers, pretty solid, but the Islanders are better. And I will say that. The Islanders with home ice for good reason. They were the better team during the regular season. Pittsburgh had their stops and starts. That's how they ended up third. But Pittsburgh seemed to get stronger as the year went along. And we'll get into that. December 10th was the last time these two teams played against each other. It was a 2-1 shootout win for the Penguins in New York. So, shootouts, we can agree at this point now we're in the playoffs. Shootouts, we'll qualify those as ties, right? December 6th, 6-2 win for the Pittsburgh Penguins at home in Pittsburgh. November 1st, 3-2 shootout win for the Islanders in New York. And October 30th, it was a 6-3 win for the New York Islanders in Pittsburgh. So each team has a win. Each team has a shootout win. So this could be a very close series. Barry Trotz, coach behind the bench, the New York Islanders, very, very likely to win. Coach of the year, rightfully so, against Mike Sullivan, a guy we just go, yeah, pretty good coach, and we move along. The Pittsburgh Penguins, will they continue their status as a team that turns into something else in the spring? Are we going to see another Washington-Pittsburgh matchup in the second round? We know where I'm leaning on that one. We know my belief on that one, that those teams are destined to play each other in the playoffs every round. And I'd love to be wrong. Love to be wrong. Before anybody says, well, Shannon would wear Pittsburgh to jinx them. If I thought wearing a jersey jinxed a team, look over my jersey selections over the last 3 years. It's not a thing. And if it was, I'm really picking badly. Now, top 6 forwards for each team. Apologies for anybody left out of the top 6 that people might think might be top 6. Braden Point type, for instance. Pretty good kid, I guess, if you could count 92 points as being top 6. I don't know. Anyways, Lee, Barzell, Eberle, Bailey, Nelson, and right now Del Cole has that spot. And this is where it gets kind of tricky. So for the New York Islanders, they are kind of nameless when it comes to their goal scoring, which is good because they have 4 lines that can hurt you at any given point in time. And you have guys like Cizikas and Clutterbuck who've had pretty good seasons offensively compared to what expectations might have been. They aren't a team where you have any one player that you could shut down, but at the same time, they don't really have a big star scorer at this point. And they have the awkward situation that, again, their team captain, Anders Lee, hasn't signed a contract yet. Getting close. That being said, it's Lou Lamoriello. He doesn't panic about this kind of thing. Now, top 6 for Pittsburgh is strong. Crosby, Gensel, Malkin, Kessel, McCann, and Rust. And just yeah. This is going to be quite the matchup for the top 6s. You'll notice I didn't put them in lines or anything either. So Sid the Kid has a 100-point season. Malkin's just getting back to good health for the playoffs. Gensel, 40-goal season, I believe, for him. McCann looked pretty darn good after being acquired from Florida. Kessel started scoring again towards the end of the year, and Rust is a playoff performer. And that's just the top 6. There's a lot of good pieces with the Pittsburgh Penguins, including, who's not on the board, Nick Bjugstad, who after coming over from Florida, solidified them on the third line. Top four defense. Leddy, Boychuk, Pulock. The Islanders have the advantage there. The Islanders have the advantage. And again, it's kind of a nameless group on that blue line. Won't be nameless for long. Pulock is going to end up being a very well-known, pretty high-profile defenseman to take over when Leddy and Boychuk are either moved out or they get, they get dropped down. He's going to be the guy. Of course, there's other defensemen in the in their prospect pool that could emerge as a number one or number two defenseman. But for who's on the roster right now, I'll go with Pulock. And there's another defenseman on their roster that's in that wild card category. The top four for the Penguins, how long can Letang play before he gets hurt again, is a question that we've got to the point where we have to ask. Schultz, he's played well, but, are we looking at an injury-prone defense here? Mata, who's been injured at points this year, and Jack Johnson, I went with in the top four because we aren't 100% sure that Brian Dumoulin, and last I checked, when I was doing this up last night, Brian Dumoulin wasn't confirmed, but he's probably going to be good to go for the start of the playoffs. So he jumps in, but Brian Dumoulin, if he's in that top four again, this is a defense for Pittsburgh that's had a lot of injury problems. So are we going to magically see them not have injury problems against an Islanders team that can play pretty physical when they want to? And the Islanders, that may be their best route, is trying to do to Pittsburgh kind of what Washington did with them last year. Now, how these teams have got here is quite different. We'll get to their overall numbers, but now we're going to talk about month by month. In the month of October, the Islanders 6-4-1, which surprised everybody. Pittsburgh 6-2-2. November, the Islanders 6-5-2. Pittsburgh 4-7-3. So Pittsburgh in November, not looking like Pittsburgh does right now, and there was, certainly a chance that if they couldn't turn things around, that either a surprising coaching change could take place, which Pittsburgh is willing to do when they're down, or they could have ended up just missing the playoffs. Look how many points teams needed to make the playoffs. It really wouldn't have needed to be that much longer of a downswing before Pittsburgh would have found themselves on the outside looking in, and Montreal would have been that number 8 seed. December, they turned it around. The Islanders are 9-4-1, whereas Pittsburgh are 11-3-1. And that's the month where Pittsburgh gets themselves up. Snide does really well. January, Pittsburgh starts to kind of have its issues, but the Islanders stay very solid. 8-2-1 are the New York Islanders to a 6-5 record for Pittsburgh. Month of February, the Islanders 8-4-2. Pittsburgh 6-5-2. Now March, the Islanders had their challenges as well. They end up 9-7, so they win more than they lose. But there are some troubling signs that maybe their offense is starting to really have its struggles. Whereas Pittsburgh 10-3-3 really kind of hit their stride, and as I've been doing in other previews, not talking about the April record because there's garbage hockey in there where teams aren't playing their best, and so we're just not going to talk about the April because these are the 6 months of the season where everybody's playing their top guys as much as possible. The Penguins finish strong. They have a really strong December. January and February, mixed bag. October, November are as well. Whereas the Islanders, they really kind of keep trucking along. November, they lose more than they win. March was more of a challenge for them than other months, but they still end up finishing second and they have home ice. And home ice could be huge. Nassau Coliseum, that could be a huge benefit to them. Although, I know their home record at Barclays and at Nassau are pretty close to the same. Which shows that maybe we overestimate the effect of a large crowd on the team on the ice. Maybe we do. And Nassau doesn't have a large capacity, but it has a loud arena. It is a smaller barn, and while the capacity is low, relatively speaking, it's an electric atmosphere compared to Barclays, which it's for basketball. Now, the overall numbers, the New York Islanders were number 21 in goals for, Pittsburgh number 6. So if this becomes a 7-3, 8-2 kind of game, it favors Pittsburgh, despite the October 30th result. Goals against. The Islanders win the Jennings. I don't think it was really close at the end. Pittsburgh, number 14 defensively. And there were some issues at different points this season with the blue line. Like I said, a lot of injuries. Power play, 14.54% for the Islanders, 24.56% for the Penguins. If the Islanders take a lot of penalties in this series, if they get frustrated and they start finding themselves shorthanded, that's going to eat into their chances of winning this series tremendously. Penalty kill, 79.91% for the Islanders, 79.73% for Pittsburgh. Almost a saw-off there. So the penalty kill's about the same. It is the power play that's the difference. So the Islanders want to have a good, clean game and stay out of the box. Goaltending, the Islanders get a bit of an edge with Leonard and Greiss. But here's the thing. You've got Murray and DeSmith for Pittsburgh. Murray has got the playoff resume that neither Leonard nor Greiss have. And Murray is known for playing his best hockey at this time of year. We remember that Washington took Pittsburgh out in the second round last year. What gets forgotten is how well Murray played at the start of last year's playoffs. So if Matt Murray comes in and if he's on fire and if he can if they can get a shutout against the Islanders in game 1 and have them doubting themselves just a little bit, if they can go in and steal a game in New York, this series could be very interesting from there. And whether or not Barry Trotz plays just one goaltender until they lose or plays both, that's going to be interesting to see. Like if Leonard goes into game 1, wins the game 3-1, puts up 30 saves, and then they go to Greiss in game 2. That would be a very interesting situation because people have been talking a lot about using tandems in the playoffs, and really, when you look at a team that's used 2 goalies in the playoffs, very often it's because of either they're losing or that goaltender gets injured. It is almost never a case where a goaltender's won a game and then they go to the other guy. So if the Islanders are winning and they start switching goalies, because Barry Trotz says, I've been doing it all year, this is the way I do things, that'll be something that's quite different from what we've seen in the playoffs in previous years. Now, wild cards, so players that could make a difference. Valtteri Filppula definitely was a spark plug for the Islanders in their last game, and he could be a huge part because, again, they have that no-name offense. I mentioned Cizikas, I mentioned Clutterbuck. Matt Martin, I know, offensively, you wouldn't think of Martin as being much of anything, but you know what? It's playoff time. He's a physical guy. He may end up getting some more ice time as a result, and maybe he pots one. Devon Toews is also one that's worth mentioning and could end up eating into top 4 minutes. Devon Toews definitely has some really solid offensive skill, and in the playoffs he could excel. On the Pittsburgh side of things, Dominic Simone had a pretty good rookie season overall. Still qualified as a rookie this year, I believe. Anyways, Simone is pretty good forward, and he is the kind of guy that in playoffs, all of a sudden he'll start scoring. We're going to see like a John Druce type story almost every year, where a guy scores some goals and you go, that's weird. And at some point I can look through playoff stats from all the previous years and pull out whoever was that year's John Druce. If you don't know who John Druce is, that's not surprising because there's a lot of people who watch this channel that are too young to remember John Druce. Brian Dumoulin, of course, wild card, as I said, because if he plays, how much does he play? How healthy is he? And just the defense in general is going to be a wild card for the Penguins. Can they all stay healthy? If they can, the odds of them knocking out the Islanders stay pretty high. I do have Pittsburgh winning this series, I think, in 6. I think it's going to be close. But I do think that Pittsburgh is a matchup that for the Islanders, I think that even though they have the number 1 defense, the number 1 goaltending tandem, when you look at the overall numbers, I do think Pittsburgh will be able to take them out. And again, it's because Pittsburgh has so much experience. They haven't lost in the first round in a few years, and I don't see it happening this year either. Do I want to be wrong? Yes. That's the funny thing. When I make these predictions, when I look at the teams and I look at the overall makeup and I look at the numbers, I don't make my pick based on what I want to see happen. I make my pick based on what I think is going to end up happening. And in this case, the Islanders have had a great run. They've got a lot to build on for next year. I do think Pittsburgh comes in and beats them. I don't see Sid the Kid going out in the first round. He's done it before. The Penguins have got knocked out in the first round. I just don't see it happening this year. But again, we'll see if I'm right or if I'm wrong. And this is just a fun little thing, these previews. Some people are taking this way too seriously. Anyways, if you're not taking this way too seriously, let me know what you think in the comment section below. And if you are, that's fine too. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Very popular thing for people to be doing the last couple of days, I might add. And hey, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.